Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Clubhouse in the journey of financial literacy with Dr. Bhavdeep Singh Ahuja. Without further ado, I'd probably want to start introducing the speaker. Hi, Bhavdeep. I'm going to start off with introducing you. How are you? Let me ask you that before I start.
Uh, I'm good, Mayur. How about you?
All awesome. So, Dr. Bhavdeep Singh Ahuja graduated in 1998 from Punjab University, Patiala. He has specialized in implants from BioHorizons USA in 2004-2005 and in advanced course from LACE ICOI USA in 2006. Apart from dentistry, he holds a triple MBA that is so awesome in hospital management, finance slash human resources dual, and marketing from the three premier institutes or universities of India, viz. The IIMM Pune, IGNOU, we all know that's in Delhi, and Annamalai University, Chennai, respectively. He also holds post-graduation diploma in medical and law ethics from NLSIU, Premier Law School of India, clinical research, cyber law, IPRs, intellectual property rights, disaster management, finance management, bioinformatics, amongst many more from different universities of India. He is a certified healthcare waste manager from IGNOU and is qualified in consumer law as well. He is an academically oriented dentist and has more than 250 original scientific articles to his credit in many international and national journals. He has authored 5 books on different topics of practice management published by Lambert Academic Publishing. He lectures all over India extensively on the topics of practice management, medical law, ethics and consent, and finance for dentists. And he is writing a series on these topics in multiple journals simultaneously. His YouTube channel exclusively for dentists is famous by the name of Dr. Bhavdeep Ahuja, and he posts many videos every week on these 3 topics for upliftment of dental fraternity. Presently, he is into his 22nd year of clinical private practice in Ludhiana, Punjab. Welcome to the show, Bhavdeep. So nice to have you on this awesome day. That's 1st of July. That's Doctor's Day and CA's Day.
Thank you, Dr. Mayur. The player is all mine. Thank you for introducing me to this world of Clubhouse. It is my debut here today as well. So, not a better day you chosen for that, a Doctor's Day and a CA's Day. I'm a part CA as well, along with being a doctor. So, thank you. All credit to you only.
Awesome. That's awesome. And your bio is also so amazing. You've done so many things in your career with respect to learning so many different things in ethics, finance management, practice management, and you are also holding your practice simultaneously, which is really, really awesome. So, before I actually hand over the mic for the lecture, here is an important announcement for the audience who has gathered with us today. So, this session is being recorded. As soon as you get on stage and speak on stage, that means you have given me consent that I can share whatever you are talking in this particular platform on various podcasting platforms. Once Dr. Bhavdeep Singh Ahuja has finished his lecture, I'll be requesting the audience to go ahead and ask their questions if they have any. If you are new to Clubhouse, if you want to ask any questions and come on stage, you can see there is a raise hand option which looks like a palm right on the bottom part of your screen. Once you come to the stage, please ensure that you have muted yourself all the time. Unmute yourself only and only when you want to share something or you want to ask a particular question. And when the speaker is answering, please keep yourself muted. These are a couple of important instructions. Once again, welcome to this awesome journey of financial literacy for everyone. After the speaker has finished talking, I'll be opening up the stage for questions. And also, if you have something else to share, for example, if you have a very interesting experience or if you have some questions for the speaker, apart from the questions, if you have something like small failures or something that we could all learn from, I'll be more than happy to invite you on stage so that you can share it with us. So once again, welcome, Dr. Bhavdeep. The mic is all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Mayur, for a wonderful introduction. I really hope I pay back the confidence what you have given in me. I do that to the audience in a justified manner. So let's talk a little bit about the financial literacy part. We all know that we all are not taught this topic in the school, and actually, we all picked up. Many of us, rather, I would say, picked up this topic in 10 plus 1 because we just hated maths. And because of that, we picked up science. And trust me, if you don't know about the numbers or you don't have a love for numbers, I would say the math and Dr. Bhavdeep is not going to leave you for the whole life in that matter, because finance or even your practice is all about numbers. So let's keep ourselves to the topic of financial literacy only today. So Dr. Mayur also put up that in the brochure itself about the concept of financial fitness. So again, we all know, especially with the COVID pandemic breaking out in 2020, many of us actually looked out to search for the hobbies we had left. So, and physical fitness was one of those. Many of the millennials, young techies who actually had left it and literally hopped onto the bandwagon of physical fitness. And because they saw that the desk jobs, work from home had started taking a toll on their physical fitness. But then, if health is very important, wealth is equally important as well. As they say, health is wealth and wealth is health. So we all know, if want to be healthy, we want to consume healthy food, being health conscious. But then, if you want to be financially healthy, financially fit, you need to have the right kind of armamentarium or the product, I would say, or the instruments in your portfolio, which are necessary for building up a bright and a content future. So, what do I exactly mean by physical or financial fitness? Sorry, financial fitness here. Financial fitness basically means that you have an emergency fund set up. You actually have minimum liabilities. If I mention them, loans very clearly, the loans are the biggest liability that we all have. Then we know how to budget them. We are actually organized properly about our monthly expenses and bills. And then we take the right decisions as we take for our health regarding our finances, also for savings and investments. Obviously, the other parts which actually have to keep our family secure, like the right kind of insurance policies, they also are a must. So anything out of this goes out of balance, surely financial fitness is bound to suffer. For example, I'll just list out that if your one of your goals is to travel the world, to go on a world tour, you need to keep your mind and body fit, surely, being physically fit. But equally important is that you keep yourself financially also fit. Otherwise, you will not be able to pursue your goal of this one that you have. And why is financial fitness so important? Why is it given so much, say, stress upon in today's times? We all saw it just 3 weeks into the pandemic's first lockdown inserted last year on 23rd, 24th of March by our Honorable Prime Minister. The situation was such, not going into those details why it was done. But 3 weeks into that, 15th, 16th of April, every one of us was itching to go back to clinic. We have had our shares of parties, Maggies, all the fun that we had, but we were itching to go back. Not that we wanted to work, but we were not financially secure. Many, very few of us had actually emergency funds set up for that purpose. So money is the first thing when you always think about, whenever you say that we think of our family and our family security. A good corpus needs to be there for the future, and you have to be prepared for life's all unexpected twists and turns. And then financial independence actually will give you the right kind of freedom. If you're financially free, you can actually make a perfect decision about the inflow and the outflow of the cash. But then certain things, certain decisions that have to be taken, they need the time quotient also in them. And you cannot rely on others, for example your family, for example your friends, that they will help you out whenever you need them. Yes, occasional help is fine, but you have to be financially independent yourself, so that you actually realize your dreams fully well. Then fitness is important in terms of your goals as well. So if you have a goal and a direction with time, many people don't set their goals, and they for example, a new practitioner who they start, how do I set my goals? I'm saving, as you say, we should save and invest. I'm doing that, but I'm doing it in a blind manner. What should I do? I said, what are your goals? That is the only problem, sir. I am not very clear about them. So let me just specify. You are a youngster, passed out maybe a couple of years ago, having a reasonably good job now. So what would be your say next immediate goal? Maybe a new clinic, maybe marriage, of course, Both the things can happen simultaneously as well. So you will be needing money for that. Of course, your family will help you out in that. But what is the other thing that you will need? You also need to be preparing for that scenario. Then once you're married, have your clinic, the immediate next goal is usually bringing a child into the family. And trust me, in these days, in these times, bringing a child into the family is not a small expense. Then the next goal, sending the child to the big school, not the primary or the playway school, but the big school. Even that is a good expense for a middle class family. And then so on, the maybe bringing the second child into the family, or if you have decided to commit to only one child, maybe then the child's other education, higher education, maybe in between your clinics expansion. So all these sorts of goals will keep on happening, and you have to invest your money in such a way that you have goals on hand. Maybe in between, you will need a good SUV, you will have a love for a car as well. So all these goals will keep on popping every 3 to 4 years, and you need to prepare for them. And the ultimate goal for each one of us is retirement planning. I call that as an alternate RIP approach. We all know what is a RIP, rest in peace. What I say via alternate plan for your alternate RIP before you actually rest in peace. That means you plan for your alternate, means you plan for your retirement investment planning. Because considering we are all mostly self-employed, even those who are working in say hospitals or maybe colleges, usually the private ones, even they are not going to withdraw any pension. So if you are not going to withdraw any pension, or you are not going to have any money, who are you going to bank upon? Your kids? I'm sorry to say, it is a very disgusting feeling asking for money from your kids in your old age. So the best thing is make your own uh, preparations yourself, and the best is in that regard a retirement investment planning. So then people always say there are other goals also. We are living in a rented house. We have to buy a home as well. Maybe your kid wants to go for foreign education, and even the retirement. I want to retire early, 55. Not I don't want to work till like my father till 60 or 65. I want to retire at least 5 to 10 years early. So if you look at the average Indian age, it is close to 78, or let's put it at round figure 80. If you want to retire at 55, you still have 25 years to say live for your retirement life without any earnings. So that is where your retirement corpus has to be big as well. So you need to both have the savings and the investment. So Dr. Mayur also mentioned this in the topic, that we are actually, do you know the difference between the saving and the investment? Is it the same? I would say no. The difference is something else. The saving is basically an individual's unspent earnings, and the amount, you can say, what you are remaining after doing your household expenses, whatever is done, is your saving sometimes. So if you meet all your consumption needs handsomely, or even in a normal manner, that is the balance that would remain. So people who buy on credit and have EMIs going on, they will actually have very little or none to save. And at this point, I just want to mention a little bit. Even if you, I being a banker's son, would always say don't go for a loan. But I do understand in today's scenarios, people don't want to ask their parents, want to be independent in that regard, and a loan is necessary sometimes. So the best approach is the loan EMIs or the liabilities in this regard should never cross 35 to 40% of your gross income. For example, if you're grossing 1 lakh in your clinic, your EMI should never be more than 35 to 40,000 rupees. Not the net income, I'm talking about the gross income. Yes, of course, yeah, you would say 35 to 40 is on the higher side, but that is what the upper limit is. Average perfect is that it should not be more than 25. So always beware of such things before you go in for a loan. So savings will always help up you pull up funds for future. And savings is either stored in home or in a bank. You can say in the normal savings account, which is giving 2.5 to 3% these days. But those money is that money is not good enough what you're saving. The other thing is that if you are not investing that money, if the savings goes to a considerable size and you are not investing it, so you are actually committing a mistake. Because the number one reason for that is the inflation. We all know inflation eats up into our say corpus. whatever expenses you had. Again, I'm talking of the normal times, discount the COVID times. For example, whatever expenses you had in June 2020, supposing it was a normal time, you would be having approximately, if you had 50,000 at that time, you must be having 55,000 annual expenses, or sorry, the monthly expenses, for that matter, for your cost of living. Just giving you an example, what does that mean is that your cost of living will roughly increase by 10% every year, irrespective of what the government figures say. The government figures are usually 3.5 to 4%. But very recently, just a couple of weeks back, or rather 1.5 week back, the government figure also touched 6.3, 6.4 for inflation. So if your cost of living is increasing by 10% every year, how can your money stored in a saving bank account in 3% beat you? Your money is actually going down in value, even if it is in a bank. So that is where you don't keep all the money over there. Apart from your emergency fund, you need to invest. And people say, when I have good money, then I will invest. Trust me, that time never comes. We always procrastinate, procrastinate, and procrastinate. And that is where the biggest pitfall is. In all this procrastination, nothing is lost but the biggest variant of growth, of investment, that is the time. What you can earn in less time, so in more time, you cannot earn in even the double amount in the half of amount of the time. So if you have 20 years to grow, you put in rupees 10,000 every month, and you are late by 10 years, you say, I'll put up now 20,000 for the next 10 years. Trust me, your corpus, what you put in via 10,000, will be huge, will be not even comparable to what you are putting in via the double the investment in half the time. So time is the biggest variation, because that is where the compounding takes over. So always advisable is to invest very, very slowly, steadily, in a disciplined manner, so that you are prepared for your emergencies as well, and your money also stays partly liquid. Do not bound all your sum, all your investment in such instrument vehicles or instrument avenues, that where you can find it difficult to withdraw. Don't always keep them lockable. There are so many options where you can do it, because that is where the goal setting has to be there. So the biggest difference between a saving and investment, usually I would say they are used interchangeably, but the difference is that the saving and the investment, the difference is one point. If I say, the level of risk being taken. In the savings, we just put it in the savings bank account or keep it in the house, in our house. While in investing, we go ahead and actually invest in an instrument which has the potential to beat the inflation. Yes, at this point, people would say they would invest in a conservative investment like a FD, but FD is a not non-existent instrument for me when it comes to investment in today's times. Yes, it was a good one, but it no longer is in the top, even the 10 instruments if you have to invest in today's time. So if you are actually setting aside your money, uh, and just saving and not investing, you are actually losing out on time, because you have so many options which can actually make your money grow, like the mutual funds, like the PPF, like the NPS, like the gold. So just even if you talk about the basic things, you can actually make your money actually earn for you. At this point of time, I would quote a wonderful line by T. Harvekar, who wrote the brilliant book Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Poor people see a dollar as a dollar to trade for something they want right now, but rich people see every dollar as a seed that can be planted to earn 100 more dollars, and they replanted then to earn 1,000 more dollars. So if you are not using those seeds properly, he said $1. He gave the example $1. That would mean a limited amount, and that he means to say. So if you're not seeing the seeds properly, you will not be investing those seeds. So that is where the difference lies in the thought process. So you have to keep a few things in the mind before you start on your investment journey, because there is always a very great amount of confusion, that what you want to actually, what is the amount of money that you should spend or invest. The You can say, Warren Buffett has given a very famous quote, uh, save first, in spend later. So if you think on those lines, you will always make proper adjustment, but the journey starts at your end first. because the number one thing would be budgeting always. So if you are not conversant with that, make a note of all the total earnings and then total expenses. A good idea would be to maybe check out your bank statements, maybe your credit card bills, or maybe your logbooks if you are maintaining them. A wonderful thing. Just check out the previous 1 year, previous 6 months, previous 3 years benchmark, and see what your average monthly is. Whenever you have to calculate the monthly thing, always look at the average part, and 1 year is a good average to draw an inference from. Don't keep it at a short span of 3 months or a 6 months. Sometimes they may give you a skewed figure sometimes. So analyze your spending and check them out. If you are doing in return, then you can better check out that whether there were any unnecessary expenses that you could have avoided, or maybe you could have from little margin from that uh, uh, that money which was spent needlessly, you could have invested that money. Because it is never advised ki you will always be always investing big sums only. You can, a disciplined investor always starts small and then gradually increases. It is like a habit. If you don't form the habit, then surely you will falter in that. So then I described how to charter your goals. Chart out your goal, because your unique situation would be different. Every, even two batchmates who have passed out together, opened up the clinic in the same place, married at the same time, maybe having the kids also at the same time. Of course, sometimes not possible, but even then, their life goals and responsibilities might be different. Some may be having a joint family responsibility. They may be the eldest son, where they have to support their brother, sister, or maybe their siblings' marriage, their siblings' education as well. So they have a bigger load to fulfill. The other one might be the youngest one, who is actually enjoying the, say, freedoms of life in that sense. So look at those things where you can set up your goals, and when and how would you need how much money, and how will you prepare for it. There were so many things which you actually can realize that there are. If you encounter that day when your goal is due, where will you ask your money from if you have not prepared for that? And then the third step always is to understand the investment basics. Unless you understand the same, and that is where I should compliment Dr. Mayur, that he has actually chosen the app day to start today, the doctor's day and the CS day. And of course, it is a GST day as well. So if you understand the investment basics, be yourself financially literate. आई ऑलवेज से दैट वन लाइन इन हिंदी, इफ अगर आपको आपके पैसे का दर्द नहीं है तो किसी और को नहीं होगा. If you don't feel the pain for your own hard earned money, nobody else will. Even the third person will not. So always invest according to your investment goals. There are so many products available which can give you returns in limited time, of course all legal ones. And I'm not going to jump into to say you to jump into the stock market, which is like unknown territory for majority of you. Uh, but yes, a disciplined investment in the form of mutual funds, in the form of your PPF, in the form of your NPS, and so many other things. Of course, gold is one essential part of your portfolio, which everyone should be having in that regard. Then always evaluate your risk tolerance profile. What do you want to invest? Do you want to have a low risk and low return, moderate risk or moderate return, or high risk and high return? At this point, always advisable is that you invest as per your age. The standard classical formula used is 100 minus your age. So you would say if you are 30 years of age, your exposure to equity would be 100 minus 30, 70%. But we say 70 sometimes seems too much to a few people. Then for Indian conditions, the formula has been modified. It is 80 minus your age. So at the age of 30, your 50% of the corpus, 50% of the investment should be in the equity. Because as you grow in life, you will have responsibilities. You have a married wife, you'll be marrying, you have a spouse, then you have the kids, then the kids schooling responsibilities. Then at that point of time, you would not be able to put in so much of money. And I'm presuming that your clinics are doing well, reasonably well, and you are actually achieving growth in them as well. So if you want to be too aggressive, then you can take bigger risks also. But remember, you can have higher returns in the bargain. you also get a risk of losing it big time as well. For example, if someone say I put in, even at the age of 30, I put in 100% of my in the equity. So equity is supposed to give you returns, but equity, for beginners who don't understand, equity is like exposure in the mutual funds which invest in the stocks, sometimes in the blue chip companies, sometimes in the large caps or the high rated companies. So you need to understand. But all this, the fifth step in this is always start investing before the first tick mark is done. And the first tick mark is an emergency fund. So, what is an emergency fund? I told you we all need to keep money for the rainy day. Somebody having a urgent hospitalization, the family, God forbid, but and maybe some any urgent cost propped up or something like COVID that happened. So, what is the amount of money? We always say on an average, the industry average says 6 months of your expenses should be your emergency fund, or 3 months of your gross income. That is the industry standard. But if someone is a freelancer, up to 12 months of emergency fund is also advisable. 12 months of expenses of emergency fund. So what does it translate in amount? I would say this would translate into 3 to 7 through or 3 to 9 lakhs, depending upon the individual's expenses and depending upon one's say social status. So it doesn't mean that everyone should have a big amount. Someone who's earning less, someone who has a limited short time span of that, he can actually keep a smaller investment. But otherwise, everyone needs to have an emergency fund, irrespective of the stature you have. So these are the five basic planning points that actually should be taken care by everyone. So the last thing that Dr. Mayur told everyone to learn was, and he told me to add that in today's talk, was the rules of thumb. How do you actually decide? Now you have set the goals. I need this much amount of money after 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. So what are the things you can actually do? So a few rules of thumb. We know that in tennis also, in lawn tennis, when they say you start with a good serve, so that the opponent has no answer. For a writer, it is always advised that you avoid using any kind of cliches. And even for eggs, if you have to boil them, there is a 6 minute boiling rule for eggs as well. So, why should investing be an exception? We all know we have to understand how fast your money can grow. So, what are those rules? The number one rule, which commonly is used in the investment sector, is the rule of 72. If you want to double your money, you actually take into account the investment's rate of return. For example, if your investment is growing at 9%, divide 72 by 9, and the answer is 8. So that means your money will take 8 years to grow. Approximately, if you can say, if it is growing at 6%, your money will take 12 years to grow. This rule of 72 can be used in reverse also. For example, you say, I have the money, I want to double it in 5 years. You gave the time. So if you divide 72 by 5, you get the answer 14.4. So that means you need to invest in an instrument that will give you the rate of return at 14.4, which is possible only in an equity fund, a mid cap or a small cap as well. So that is where the you can calculate that, yes, if I have this much money, I need to double it in 5 years, because in 5 years this life event of mine is due or approximately nearby. So you need to invest in an equity instrument which will give you 14.4%. So if you kept that money in your FD, which is at 5% or something similar, so you can know your money will take about 14 years to grow double. It won't grow double in 5 years. So that is where you have to distinguish between the two. For starters, I would mention the rule is not exactly rule of 72. The rule is 69.3. But since 69.3 is a kind of a number which is not easily divisible, plus a decimal thing, so the closest number 72 has been taken, because 72 has many divisible factors like 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 9. It is divisible by those. So that is where it can come in handy. So the second rule is rule of 114. So if the rule of 72 tells you how to double your money, the rule of 114, working in a similar manner as 72, tells you how long will it take to triple your money. For example, if you invest rupees 1 lakh in a product with a 6% interest rate, it will grow to 3 lakh triple in 19 years. as per the rule of 114. So this is the amount. Again, this rule can also be used in reverse also. So the third rule is rule of 144. You all know 72 into 2, double of 72 is 144. So 144 it means that not your money would be, you can say 72 में double हो रहा था, तो what will happen in 144? It is actually quadrupled, 4 times the return. If you want to expand 4 times, so similar way, if your rule 144 says if you invest 1 lakh with 6% interest rate, it will grow to 4 lakh in 24 years. So to take the number of years, then divide the product by the, you can say, by the interest rate, and you will arrive at the number of years it will take to say quadruple or multiply by 4 times. So then the fourth rule is the rule of 70. So this is a great rule when you actually estimate how much your existing wealth will be worth in 10 or 20 years. So if you do not spend or invest a single penny, its value will be much lower because inflation is the one to blame. So divide the number 70 by current inflation rate to arrive at this figure. So the number you arrive at represents the number of years it will take for your money to be worth half of that. For example, if you have rupees 50 lakh today and the inflation rate is 5%, so your value of 50 lakh will become 25 lakh in 14 years. 70 divided by 5, it will become half in 14 years. For example, if we say what 1000 rupees in 2010 were valued at 710 rupees in 2020, it has gone down roughly by one third in the value in the 10 years itself. So the last rule is the 10-5-3 rule. So when we invest money or even consider investing the money, we usually look for the rate of the return on our investments. So the 10-5-3 rule will actually tell you to in determining what is your investment's average rate of return. So although mutual funds will have no guarantee, they always tell you to read the offer document very clearly before investing. But a long-term equity should yield minimum 10%, whereas the debt should yield 5%. And the average return on savings is saving bank account is 3% in a nationalized bank. So you need to keep these 5 rules in mind: 72, 114, 144, rule of 70, and the 10-5-3 rule. So I think that would be all for the presentation part on my end, Dr. Mayur. And I hope I
Amazing. That
stuck
was
to
like a
my time.
rocket fire kind of a thing. So I'm sure a lot of us have questions to ask. So what I'm going to be doing now is, since we are already 30 minutes into the session right now, I'm going to be requesting people, if they have any questions, to raise their hand, and Dr. Bhavdeep is going to answer it for you. So if you have questions, just raise your hand. I'll invite you on stage. But as soon as you are on stage, please mute yourself till your turn comes. We'll call out your name in the PTR order. So we have Shraddha who wants to join us.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Um, Sir, actually, I wanted to ask, you mentioned that gold should be like definitely present in the portfolio. So, what is how do we proceed in investing gold?
Okay.
Right.
Dr. Shraddha,
Once again, Bhavdeep. Shraddha, can you mute yourself so Bhavdeep sir can answer?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Thank you, Dr. Mayur. Shraddha, what I want to tell you is that gold is actually a hedge. Hedge is one thing which can balance out certain things. For example, you always say you never put all eggs in one basket. People will invest in a PPF also, which gives currently 7.1. People will invest in an instrument which will give them around 8.1 or 9 as well. For example, the Sukanya Samriddhi gives 7.6. People will invest in an equity also, which will give them on an average 12 to 15. So a gold is a thing which will actually hedge, acts as a hedge and balances out all the things. For example, it'll totally make your return come to closer to 10%, because ultimate aim of our investment is to beat the inflation part. So once you beat the inflation, you can actually literally go in that sense. So what I advise in gold is that you uh, I think someone's audio is on.
Uh,
What I advise in gold is the best way is to go in for the SGB or the sovereign gold bonds. Although there are, you can buy digital gold, you can buy physical gold, you can buy gold ETF or mutual funds. But if you look at all the factors, the gold in the form of SGB, sovereign gold bonds by the government of India is one of the best options that you can have. I recently took a webinar in my WhatsApp group as a part of my free education that I run. So it is on my YouTube channel, as Mayur also mentioned. My YouTube channel has currently close to 350 plus videos, majority of them webinars and short videos as well. So I've detailed out all the investments of gold, so you can visit my YouTube channel and watch that 1.5 hour video to be entertained. But to just curtail your query to short points, the sovereign gold bond or any other returns would give almost the similar return. No gold gives you extra because they are dependent upon the international rate of the gold on that particular day. But the sovereign gold bond gives you an additional 2%, 2.5% interest advantage, which is over and above the gold rate. The only flaw is that it has a long tenure. It has to be you. The scheme is for 8 years, but the absolute lock-in is 5 years. You can exit anytime after 5 years on the day of your interest. The interest is incurred in your account every 6 months. So whenever you want to exit after 5 years, you can just put in a request and you will be exited out, and you will get the money as per your gold rate on that day. But the better option is to stay invested for long. And gold, as an ideal, I would say it should be 10% of your portfolio always. For everyone, for every year, the gold should be at least 10% in your portfolio. And I hope I answered your query.
Shraddha, are you there?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. So let's take the next person for the question. Anybody else wants to ask question? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask Dr. Bhavdeep the question of your choice.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to know from Dr. Bhavdeep that at what age would you advise starting a PPF account?
For yourself or for your kids, are you asking?
For myself, sir. As in, currently, say I am 37. So actually, I have been investing into PPF since last 3 to 4 years. But would it be advisable to, considering the lock-in period of the PPF account, will it be advisable to start the PPF at the later stage of the life, or should we start it immediately?
To answer your query, Dr. Kamed, my younger daughter is 4 years old. She was born in January 2017. I went to the bank in March 2017 to open her PPF and Sukanya account when she was a little more than 1 month old. The banker said, "Where is the exact photograph?" He said, "This is the hospital photograph. This is there only with me." Said, "Proper photo you should bring." Said, "The child's head is not yet stable." So I started my daughter's PPF and Sukanya at 1 month of age. So the longer you give an instrument a time to grow, the longer it'll take the power of compounding in its stride and actually bring you returns. And if you have been late, better late than never to start it at the earliest. At this point, I would say, even though with the today's rate of return, 7.1, PPF is now considered in a debt kind of a category, although PPF also used to have a 12% interest at one point of time in the early 2000s. But if you stay invested for longer period of 30 to 35 years, you would actually see that your interest component is huge compared to what you principal you put in for those 30 years or so. And again, one of my YouTube channel videos is the two vital wheels of investment, PPF and NPS. So these have to be in your portfolio ASAP as you can. Of course, NPS you can't start before 18 years, but PPF ASAP. Even if you have young children in your family, open up their PPF as soon as you can.
Thank you very much, sir.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Bhavdeep. So you've been mentioning about portfolio, that this should be there in your portfolio. Gold should be there. PPF should be there. Can you give a summary of the best places to invest your money on as of date, Bhavdeep?
Mayur, the basic investments are actually dependent in term with your goals and what risk potential that you carry. And then if you have the reasonable ones as like everyone, then the best investment begins as per your age factor only. At the age of 30, your minimum 50 to 60%, I would say, should be in equity, because that is the time you have least responsibilities, and then you can put in a lot of time. And the rest can be a mixture of the debt or the conservative instruments that you can. So I would say 50 to 60 in equity, 10 in gold, and the remaining in debt. And that debt would include PPF and the say NPS part for a grown up adult. But then this is the distribution that we give if we have to take the tax saving into account. If we take the tax saving part, means you can invest maximum 1.5 in section 80C, which is PPF, ELSS. ELSS is equity linked savings scheme, those mutual funds which give you a tax benefit but are locked in for 3 years. So even they are a kind of a equity component only, but yes, a little bit lesser return wise than equity. So if your aim is tax saving, then this distribution is apt for you. But if you are aiming at a distribution that where you don't want to just going for tax saving, but for the wealth creation part, so then the aim should be to look beyond the tax saving component alone. For example, for a middle aged guy, 30 to 40, I would say, although a youngster, but in financial terms we call it a middle road person, he should be investing minimum 5 lakhs a year. So that would mean roughly 40,000 per month. So I don't think that is a difficult amount for people who are actually maybe middle road in practice or settled. So if you are looking at 5 lakh investment for the year, uh, as per your age, minimum 40% should be in equity. If we divide 80 minus subtract 80 minus 40, so that would mean your 2 lakh should go in your equity portion, not in the ELSS, because you would be say completing the ATC component already with the PPF. So 1.5 should go in PPF, 50,000 should go in NPS, and 50,000 should go in gold. So 1.5, 50, and 50 makes it 2.5 and 2 in equity. And with the remaining 50, you can dribble in any other instrument, or maybe you can buy an equity for that amount as well if you're willing to. So that is my suggested breakup according to the age factor.
Right, great. And what are you investing on these days in the share market?
I actually deliberately stopped trading 1 year before my father's death. My
Okay.
father passed away on 30th June 2019. Yesterday was his second death anniversary. So we used to do a lot of trading, but 1 year before his death, we actually consciously stopped it because that had started to eat up into my clinic's time. You really have to be glued to the screen and make changes immediately as per that. So because at by that time, whatever corpus we desired had already built up by then. So yes, dad's money got inherited to me as well after his death. But I deliberately stopped it because if because the trading happens from 9:30 to 3:30 or 9:15 to 3:30, and that is my clinic peak time as well. So I've deliberately put a full stop to the trading in my life a couple, say 3 years ago.
What would be your recommendation for people who would have time? Should they continue trading, or they should also think about other options which are very popular nowadays, like Bitcoin and other stuff?
See, the only component is that if you have time, which I believe that a normal dentist will not have in the day usually, even if he's working in a hospital or a clinic or a college, so he would not have. But presuming that he has the evening clinic only, as you said, so I would say before a good financial knowledge of the share market, don't just jump into the bandwagon of investing in the stock market. Yes, you can have an occasional bet going right, but yes, there is a big chance that you can actually end up in losses as well. These days the most common thing which is opted for is the F&O, the future and the options. So yes, a very lucrative thing. Sometimes very you can say it initiates your greedy component from inside. But I'm no longer say doing those things. I've done that, been there, done that. I don't want to. Not that they burnt my hand. I earned good profits out of that, but out of a conscious decision which I took alongside my dad when he was alive. So I've stopped that. So as per the cryptocurrency, till the cryptocurrency becomes legal instrument in India, I would still advise everyone to abstain from it. Considering there was, say, a statement and an article by the valuation guru Ashwatan Damodaran just a couple of days back. He said the cryptocurrency, what it should have grown, hasn't got the status actually in the previous few years. It is. I'm not really sure about its long-term prospects. Yes, every country is almost now bringing up its own currency, but I would abstain everyone to go for it till it is acquiring a legal status in India.
That's perfect. So once again, a gentle reminder to everyone: if you want to ask questions to Dr. Bhavdeep, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll be more than happy to invite you on stage. Or if you have any experiences to share with us, we'll be more than happy to listen out as well. So Bhavdeep, I'm coming to my next question. There might be a lot of youngsters or maybe students over here, for people who might be waiting to start their post graduation, what would be one suggestion from your side to them? Because currently they have their whole life ahead of them, and their family has invested a lot of money for their studies. So, how does a student go about thinking of all these things? Because he or she might be probably waiting to join the first year of post graduation, or they might have already joined. What should they be having as an economic orientation in current stage of their life?
I'm really glad, Mayur, you asked this question. I actually had this feeling exactly a year back when I had started conducting webinars. I was not very fond of the camera thing. Even I told you, I think uh, I hardly take a selfie also. So last March 2020, Anand Mohatta of WDI contacted me, said, "Now the lockdown is there. Let's do a webinar." I said, "Anand, I can do a live one. I can do in the audience. I do conduct workshops, but in the front of camera, I would say I hate the camera, and the camera doubly hates me back.
That's
So
why Clubhouse is a better option, I would say.
that is why. That is why. So I don't think so. But he literally persuaded me to doing my first webinar on 25th of March. And about 7, 8 more happened till May end. So that is when my one of my friends, Dr. Thind from Ludhiana only, he pushed me for my YouTube channel. He said, "You are recording your webinars. Why don't you start a YouTube channel?" I said, "Why? What would I do? These are just 8 videos. We'll be over with the lockdown. We'll get back to our normal life very soon." He said, "You never know. Life has its own twists and turns. It may become a useful resource for people in coming times. You never know." And trust me, his words actually became a prophecy and became true for me. And today, exactly 1 year, or you can say 13 months, I 1st of June I revived my channel. It had just one video posted in 2008. That was a patient education video of 3 minutes or so. I started on 1st June, exactly 13 months after today. Today my channel has 356 videos, and majority of them are webinars, some as good as 3 hours plus. Yes, there are short videos, separate playlists. That is a good resource for any youngster to start off. And keeping youngsters in mind, I had actually taken a webinar recently in 4 parts, a financial investment journey in 4 parts. So that will be on YouTube. It has already been scheduled. The kind of webinars that have been taken in the previous 3 months only, from April to 30th June, I've taken 51 webinars. You won't find it hard. You will find it hard to believe, but yes, so many hitherto unknown topics have been touched. All for youngsters, all from different topics that I take: practice management, medical, legal, and finance. And as a youngster, yes, the practice components are going to help you in times when you have no one to guide you in those matters. And in financial matters, it is absolute necessary, if you all are listening, that it is absolutely necessary to be financially literate and be independent with your own financial decisions. And trust me, my channel is an excellent resource for all of you, and it is kind of there is nothing paid in that channel. It is everything is free for all of you to use. It is a resource which I would want everyone to use, so that you can get benefited. It is my payback to my fraternity, which has given to the profession, which has given me so much. So start from the basics. There are topics varied from each basic topics of practice management and finance, and even the medical legal parts. So just go on, and of course, once you have the basics ready, you can then move ahead and do a post graduation in these things virtually, I would say, in any stream later on.
Right, awesome. So, for people who are young and who are into graduation or post graduation, there's a lot to learn from Dr. Bhavdeep. You can check out his YouTube resources, and I'm sure they'll be very, very helpful to all of us. All right, so we are already 50 minutes into the session. Once again, a gentle reminder, this session is being recorded and I might repurpose it onto a podcast. If you have any questions or something to share, please raise your hand and I'll be happy to invite you on stage. All right. So, Dr. Bhavdeep, what should, for example, if I want to invest on start investing on shares, what is the kind of research that I should do? And is there like a limit that I should invest on the shares, and what are the best resources that I should look up for that you also have tracked? Like you said, you've been doing trading for quite some time. So, what were the resources that you hooked on to, and how did they help you invest in this particular market?
Mayur, the first thing always is my resources. My best resource was my dad only. My dad has been a banker and a teacher for more than the period he actually did banking. He did banking for 34 years, but he had been a teacher for 37 years at the time of his retirement. So he was my biggest teacher. Yes, I have my MBA finance as well. But anyone who has to start his financial journey in stock market, the number one thing he has to check for is his risk appetite. What do you want to, how much money can you actually swallow very kindly if it is lost in the market. So first identify your risk appetite, and then, because sometimes we lose some, and in a hurry to gain that, we actually say try to invest furthermore. Then there are a lot of things available about that. For any trading, you can say, you can starting your trading, you need to open up a 3-in-1 account, or maybe a simple trading account along with your demat account, along with any depository participant, or maybe your local stock exchange if it is there. So there are so many options: Zerodha, ICICI Direct, Sharekhan, so many of them. You can open up a trading account with them. Some of would offer you for free in the beginning, some would charge, some where that we had our say contacts in the local stock exchange, and sorry, and the contacts in the local. My dad's students were there who were running AMC, Master Capital and Master Gain. So we invested through them as well, along with having a demat and a trading in the local stock exchange. We didn't use these third party DPs like Zerodha and other group members of this. Uh, but yes, there is a lot of literature available which you have to read. If anyone wants, he can contact me. I can forward you so many initial startup books which I also read, which my dad actually made me read. Fortunately, later on, those books had the PDFs also available. So if somebody wants, I can share them over WhatsApp or over their email. You can drop in. But yes, you need to be fully equipped mentally first, that you are ready for that. But then, having said that, it is one thing which you should tread with caution. Many a times you can't just predict the market. They always say only two people can predict it correctly, either God or the liar. So, and the market does not work on valuation, or just does not work on you can say figures. It sometimes works on sentiments also. Some explosion happens in Iraq and the market crashes or correct 5%, 10%. Something pertaining to bonds is said in US, the market corrects itself. So these sort of things, even the global factors would have an influence on the share market. So we have to be wary about such things. The bulls and the bears continue to trade places. People who don't know, bull means the run which continues for the upward trend of the market. The bears mean the trend which continues towards the downward of the market. So I'd be happy to provide anyone with the resources in the form of books if anyone needs to start and upgrade his knowledge regarding, say, stocks and trading in the market.
Right, right. Yeah. So a lot of youngsters that I see are very keen on investing on stock markets these days. But I just wanted to ask you, how would you explain it to them? That fine, you can invest on stock markets, but after you've invested on equity, PPF, and other things, what would be your suggestion to them? कि भैया share market तो कर लो, मगर basics पहले all this should have been there in place. What do you suggest to such people who started share markets directly?
Again, I'm glad that you asked this question. For youngsters, I have this one advice. Youngsters have the biggest advantage that none of us has. Kamesh just said he's 37. I am 44. So we all know we have lost out on certain component. I mentioned in the presentation itself, the biggest component is the time. And youngster have anyone who is 20, 21, even 23, 24, he has plenty of years to go for retirement. Presuming he retires at 60 also, he has 35 to 38 years to go till that. And trust me, if even you put in just 2000 per month, just a small example, you can build your corpus in 35 years in crores. And that is the biggest advantage that you have. So once you are done with your basics, you want to test out the markets, go ahead, but never skip the basics. That is the reason I mentioned, for anyone who's starting out, the financial investment journey done in 4 parts is the webinar for all of you to watch out. Some of them have, some of my members have attended it, some did not, but they are waiting for the same on the YouTube. So every day new videos coming on YouTube. They have already been scheduled till the mid of August presently also. So even if I do a webinar today, it'll be say scheduled for 15th or 16th of August. So that is the kind of queue it is there, because there is so much of videos over there. So always get your basics right, and trust me, for those basics, especially for your mutual funds, they can be your excellent, almost a non-risky resource, and that can actually make you earn billions, not millions, but billions. So get those basics right. At least do some intended thing. As per age, also I've given a segregation in the FIJ sessions. As per amount, also I've given the segregation. But you have to watch all the 4 sessions in full to get the hang of it. So once you do that, you will be conversant in what you need to do. And after doing that, if you still have money and you still have the risk appetite and you have the right kind of knowledge, jump into the stock market. Yes, you can, but always be very conservative in the approach. Remember, sometimes knowledge does not help. The market works on sentiment also sometimes.
Right, right. Totally agree with that. So one big takeaway is that don't just start investing on shares directly. That has to be done with a surplus amount if you have, after you've systematically planned your investment. Is that right, Dr. Bhavdeep?
True, absolutely true.
Right, right. So we are almost 1 hour into the session. Does anybody have anything else to share with us? Any story or something to learn or any tips? We'll be more than happy if you would want to come on stage and share something. If not, I probably want to call it day after thanking Dr. Bhavdeep. Harshan?
Yeah, Dr. Bhavdeep, I have this question. You said emergency funds minimum of 3 months, but most of the resources I have heard to or read said that it is best to have minimum 1 or 2 years of emergency funds. How do we know how much emergency funds we might need?
I said 6 months of expenses or 3 months of gross income, not 3 months of expenses. And I said for freelancers, those 6 months of expenses can be unpredictable. So keep 12 months of expenses. I mentioned it very clearly. So if you are a freelancer, your 12 months of expenses or 6 months of your gross income. Or conversely, for an average person, 6 months of expenses and 3 months of gross income. It will come out to be the same only, because we presume our expenses at 50% of our gross income. So it comes out to almost the same amount in both the scenarios. So the industry accepted standard is 6 months of expenses. No one says, maybe a few speakers would have their ideology, but the industry accepted standard is 6 months only. So yes, people want to play it safe, but then you need to realize that there are certain limitations for everyone. Certain people who make this opinion may be having a bigger liabilities on their end. As I said, someone may be an elder son of the family, having a joint family at bay, and may be responsible for the say their siblings' marriage, their siblings' education. So all those factors also come into play. But as a standard, 6 months of expenses, a freelancer who has unpredictable source of income, 12 months of expenses. That is my takeaway. Yes, this is my ideology. People can differ with that.
Got it, sir. Got it.
Yeah.
And I have been reading on Varsity by Zerodha for the past 6 or more months, and I've been reading all their modules.
One
Do
second,
you
one second,
suggest
Harsha.
that
One second, Harsha.
basic?
Khushbu, can you please mute yourself? Yeah. Sorry for that.
Do you suggest it as an immediate source of knowledge for a beginner?
You can, because every of such site, even the Money Control will be giving you good, even Economic Times is giving you a good one. So yes, all of them have now a paid version as well, along with the free version. The paid version has a more content. For example, I love Economic Times articles. They are so much in depth. I have a paid subscription for that also. So I actually have tried out Mint also, Money Control also, and many others. The basic content is about the information and the knowledge which is there. Yes, I haven't yet gone into much of resource of Zerodha, but if you have found that good, you may continue with that. But do try Economic Times and of course Money Control as well. They have wonderful articles wherein you can learn a lot many things.
Yes, sir. I do miss a lot of AT articles because I'm not a subscriber. Like I see the notifications; those are
Yes.
interesting, but I keep
And
missing
their
them.
subscription is damn cheap. It's not very expensive. For 2 years, it is about 2,800 or so. So, which is not
Okay.
even, you can say, 100 rupee or 150 rupees a month. It is damn cheap in
Okay.
that regard. So go for it, because that is an excellent resource along with Money Control. Money Control
Okay.
free version is good enough.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So in the next PTR order, we have Dr. Khushbu. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening, sir. Good evening. It's an honor to hear your advice, sir. Sir, my question to you is that if we have taken a small loan, it's from my father only. It's not called a loan. It's just a friendly help that he has given. But I would like to take it very professionally. That I would like to repay it to him. Whether he accepts it or not, it's a different thing. So. What I am doing is I'm trying to accumulate small amounts every month out of it, out of whatever I can, and then I try to reach 50, 60,000, and then I'll repay them. But that never happens, sir. If it goes to 20, 25k, then I'll have some other expense or something I want to buy, so I'll invest in that and I'll upgrade my clinic. So how do you give a plan to repay the debts? It's interest free though, that I'm not worried much, but there should be a plan though.
I'm glad, Khushbu, you asked this question. People ask me, sir, you say you don't take loans. So, what is the option that you have? I always give it in three orders. Number one, take no loan. Number two, take it from parents at 0% interest. Obviously, I believe that the principal still has to be paid back, like you are doing it or thinking on those lines wonderfully. And the third thing would be, if you want to take, I gave you the limit 25 to 40%. Chalo, we are discussing the second part here. Yes, if you are not able to collect the desired amount, I would say the problem lies maybe at your end in the budgeting format. The standard budgeting formula that is used all over the world is 50, 30, 20. What means is that whatever amount is your net take home, I'm not talking of your clinic expenses, whatever your gross was, let's suppose 50% of that you're carrying home. Let's concern of that 50%. Or for example, if you earned gross, you can say total collection was 2 lakhs, 50,000, 1 lakh was clinic expense at 50%. Leave that. Now you're taking home 1 lakh as your take home salary or take home income. For example, we're taking with that. So the internationally accepted budgeting formula says 50 30 20. 50% should go into your basic needs, your cost of living. 30% should go into your wants, your excursions, your movies, your dining out, and all those stuff. And the remaining 20 should go into your retirement planning or maybe your loan payback. That is the formula that is used. But what I find is, and because of this, I have devised an alternative formula that we doctors start our life almost a decade late. A normal person, our 10 plus 2 commerce or arts graduate, has usually 4 decades to earn, almost 4 decades to earn. We have almost, our life begins after 30 and we have almost 3 decades to earn. So we have lost out on 10 prime years of life to invest. So we should have more than this amount. So that is where I have devised my own formula 3 years back. I call it the Bhavdi formula of 45 15 40. So I would say your basics need to be cut down maybe by 5 from 50 to you come out to 50, 45, and you cut out 15 from your wants, which luckily anyways due to COVID have been cut off. We are not going to movies, we are not going for shopping, we are not going for malls, and our work from home happens with we wearing the top only and at the bottom for the males especially we're in our bermudas only, just to give you a small example on the lighter side. But that means our wants are on the reduction side. So that would mean if you add 15 and 5 there, add that in the 20 of the 50 30 20. So you arrive at a 45 15 40 formula. So that is the formula by my name. So that 40 can be used to ward off your loans or ward off maybe going for your retirement investment planning from your net home income. So that means out of 1 lakh you're carrying, 40,000 should be restricted specially for this amount, either your investment part for your long term or and for your loan payback. Try adjusting your budgeting according to my formula. If not, if you are using the 50 30 20, or maybe you can start with the 50 30 20, but I believe 45 15 40 would be easier to adjust in these COVID times since the wants are limited a lot and we can actually curb them to 15% of our total monthly expenses. So try that, and I hope you will surely get good results.
Definitely, I'll definitely try that, sir. Thank you so much.
Right,
Sure,
but in
sure.
but in dentistry, upgradation actually never stops.
Never
That
stops,
is one of the
actually.
problems. So I
Yes.
think I probably want to build up on Khushbu's question.
Yeah.
The moment she has some money, she might be divided into two thoughts. Number one, should she accumulate this amount for repaying back the loan, or use this fund to upgrade herself? So do you have something like when can one start upgrading if they are already in debt? Do we have a plan for that, or do we have another budget for keeping something for upgradation in clinics?
The problem in dentistry is that we actually are fascinated by the FOMO approach, fear of missing out. We see a lot of Facebook dentistry happening, and we get smitten by it. Yes, even I am going to buy it. People don't actually understand their needs and where the money is flowing in from. Again, these things have been discussed in various topics in my practice management sessions as well. What is the take home point from that is, for example, if you are a periodontist, uh, and your primary income is coming from Crown and Bridge, you would want to invest in a digital scanner rather than a piezotomy or maybe any perio instrument, which is your specialty. So, what you are having your patients from is more important rather than what your colleagues are doing on Facebook or rather what you want to buy. The needs and the wants have to be separated. What your patients need as per your, you can say, return over income, that is more important to invest. So, yes, you have to curb your wants in somewhat manner and invest only as per your clinic's situation. That is where we actually raise our expenses. Open up the refrigerator, open up your clinic drawers. You will find so many things of value for 1,000, 5,000 lying useless in your drawers, which have not been used in the past 6 months. But trust me, a good amount of money lying unutilized. That money could have, that is the, you can say, the cost of money which we have actually lost out on. Yesterday, I took up 2 webinars on costing, know the basics of costing, the road to a profitable dentistry on DADS FB page. And the second one was on the World Dental Association page on the similar topic, costing in dentistry and profitability in dentistry. I told about all the costs that are applicable to it. We always look it onto the direct cost. इतने का material लगा, इतने का lab cost है, and we charge the patient. We don't take into account there are around 26 to 27 costs which are applicable to most of us. So do catch out that video. Again, that video will be in a couple of days on my channel as well. Presently, they are on the WDN DADS FB page for 48 hours or so. So, but then they'll be taken off from there in a short while. So we have to be aware of our costs. Unless you know your costs, where your money is coming from and where your money is growing, because this is a leaky bucket. Otherwise, you will not realize that yes, we all think यार पैसे कमाए तो थे at the end of the month गए कहाँ पे? This is the other costs, indirect costs have actually eaten up into that. So we have to shun our own wants attitude, and we have to be aware of the costs as well if we actually want to save surplus money. And if you have a surplus money saved, that money can be used anywhere for your clinic upgradation, for your investment, for your fulfilling your kind of wants as well. So that is the reason I mentioned the world tour kind of a thing example in the first place when I was setting about the goals. I never mentioned save for your retirement. I always said save for the goal, save for your world tour as well. Because again, you cannot always keep on curbing your desires and wishes forever. You have to be in conversant with these today's times, and you have to be, you can say, fulfill those things as well. So I hope I have given you the answer.
Right. That's very appropriate. I completely agree with you, Bhavdeep. Right. So, in the next PTR order, we have Pramod over here. Before Pramod unmutes himself, just a quick reminder. Dr. Bhavdeep is speaking on the journey of financial literacy. If you have any questions for him, or if you want to share something with us, we'll be more than happy to invite you on stage. This session is being recorded and might be repurposed for as a podcast. Pramod, you can unmute yourself and ask a question or share something.
Good evening, Dr. Mayur and Dr. Bhardi. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Dr. Bhardi, I have one question regarding the amount that we usually keep as absolute liquidity. Probably some amount in the savings bank. What's your opinion on how much should we actually keep in the SB apart from all the other investments? I'm just talking about the liquidity portion. How much would you want to keep in a savings account? And how much would you want to put it into a liquid fund? How reliable is a liquid fund in terms of as a risk factor? And should we even use it or not? That is one question. If I'm allowed to ask another question, I'll do it, Dr. Bhakti, after your answer. It's okay.
Okay. You can unmute yourself. Sorry, you can mute yourself, I mean to say. Yes, Pramod. So the thing is, if you are actively investing into the SIP mode in your mutual funds, I would advise you to keep at least 2 years sum in your saving bank account for that debit purpose or auto SIP purpose. Number one. Number two, there are different variants for that pertaining to dentists. I'm not very sure whether you're a dentist or a doctor. We actually advise the dentists or the doctors in a different way, that you keep all your money in your, you deposit all your money in your current account, and from there you make the transfers accordingly. For your personal expenses, it goes to another account. For your other, you can say, investment purpose goes to other account. So that is the reason. So as regards emergency money, I don't advise to keep them in a normal regular savings bank account like a nationalized bank, which is offering 2.5 to 3. But yes, the suggested modes of emergency fund are the liquid funds. They are good and reliable, reasonably giving you 5.5 to 6 to maximum 7% returns. The second option, which I was advising till a couple of months back and would continue to do so if it permits you, that I always suggest the emergency fund to be kept in a high earning savings bank account. Like IDFC First, we used to give 7%, now it is down to 5%. The RBL Bank, which continues to give 6.75%. The you would say the AU Small Finance Bank still gives you 7%, and a couple more which give you 6.5 as well. So if it is feasible and if it is in your town, I would advise the money to be kept over there, so that the money is liquid as well and is at your disposal as well. If you don't have a high earning savings bank account at your disposal, you can keep in liquid funds, which has the proposition to be liquidated at the earliest. You can give an online request also for that and get the money at your disposal as fast as you can. But having said that, there are a few investments which I advise you should not be hoping or aiming to get return back on. And trust me, emergency fund is one such investment. Yes, you should keep it handy. The primary purpose of a emergency fund is that it should be handy and accessible whenever you need it, even at the 11th hour. Of course, if you need it in the night, you can't take it out from the bank or even from the mutual fund or even the liquid fund, I mean to say. So yes, it should be handy in the next day or maybe a couple of days. Yes, there are always times when you can still manage a couple of days without those funds, but the main aim is accessibility. But if those amounts that money is earning a good amount as an interest or as a return over investment, there is nothing wrong in it. So I hope I answer your question. For mutual funds, at least 2 years of SIPs in your account. Other than that, if you want to keep anything handy.
Thank you, sir. I absolutely answered my question. One more question, if I'm allowed. If it's okay.
Sure.
Regarding the sovereign bonds, I think the ETF gold.
Your voice cracked up. I didn't listen properly. Sorry.
Yeah, I said the sovereign gold bonds that you said, you get an additional 2.5 on the returns, which you're supposed to be getting, right?
Yeah.
So that was a great thing because I was investing in ETF gold and getting 2.5 additional through the sovereign gold bonds would be great. My only question was, is it available at any point of time for purchase or is it like on government issues only?
No, the government actually issues it every month. Last year also it gave up. So this month it was late. The first tranche came on 21st March or 21st May, sorry, for this 21-22 financial year. So within 3 days there was second tranche and within 4 days there was third tranche. So from 21st May to June 3rd, I guess, all the 3 tranches were exhausted. So now the fourth tranche would be coming on 12th of July. The fifth would be coming in the start of August and the sixth would be coming in the end of August for this semester, you can say. So it is there every month usually. So yes, the rates are specified. The first tranche was 47.37 per gram, I guess. The second was about 60 rupees, 65 rupees costlier, and the third was even costlier. So you never know what would be the rate in the fourth tranche. But many people, and my session happened just about after the first tranche on 22nd or 23rd of March. You can check out that video. It has all the gold options have been explained in depth, and it was a very hit webinar when it took place. So people were very handy. So you can check out the same on my YouTube channel. So gold as an investment option in India.
Brilliant. Pramod, are you there?
So sorry, the connection got disconnected. Yeah, I got the point which he said, sir. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, what I mean to say is that gold as an investment option in India is available as a full webinar on my YouTube channel. So you can visit the channel and watch the full video. You will be enthralled after watching it.
Thank you, Dr. Vadi. Thank you so
and
much.
Because the SGB option has been made so simple, it used to be for you can say the investment had to be through a demat account. Now the banks, you can log into your internet banking, click on purchase SGB. It will say how many units. You'll say, let's suppose 10 grams, 120 gram, whatever. Say confirm. You click on confirm, ho gaya, and done. So it is like a dhoya, bhigoya, or ho gaya approach, as we used to see that television ad for the washing of clothes. Dhoya, bhigoya, ho gaya approach. The demat option has been done away, and you receive a certificate from the RBI eKuber website within 2 to 3 days itself.
Right.
It is viable of all the options of gold which is available.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Vadi. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Harshan, you wanted to ask something, Harshan?
Yes, Doc. My question to Dr. Bhavdeep is, I don't want to talk about the currency part of cryptocurrency, but I want to talk about cryptocurrency as an innovative model. When cryptocurrency is something decentralized and a central authority like a bank would not be required if the software is online. Why would any bank like RBI or any other central bank support cryptocurrencies in the near future? Because we have seen many innovative models have come. Like when the internet came, people said that it won't work. When the smartphone was released, Nokia was like, this is not going to happen. Why don't we consider cryptocurrency as the same way, as an innovative model and not as a currency right now?
Because many things come first. The legal part is there, taken to be in consideration first. People would always say that, you can say, whenever these things happen, पहले सही चीज होती है, then the wrong thing happens. But in the case of cryptocurrency, people have been blackmailed in the past, in the dark underworld, because of their details being leaked, and the cryptocurrency being used as a way of communication, or as a way of, sorry, the currency in that case. So the illegal things have happened first in this case. In the case of internet, or in case of a smartphone, or any other such example, you would say these things would not have happened. The terrorism can be funded by in such a manner, in such regards. So the governments of various world have actually not jumped on properly to this bandwagon. They are recognizing their own currency, and again, Elon Musk is always confused whether to support Bitcoin or not. So someday he gives another statement, someday he gives another, and that makes the valuation go down. I agree with you. Innovative model it is definitely, but because of its shady past, it was first used in the dark underworld web. So that is the reason people, or you wouldn't say the governments, are skeptical to accept it as a legalized model. That is my take on it, I would say.
Uh, and also, sir, if cryptocurrency comes, the banks are going to lose their jobs. The people who work in the banks are going to lose their jobs. So, why would recently we saw that the bank stopped transfer of money to crypto exchanges and all this stuff. Doesn't it look like the banks are reacting to their future job loss because of cryptocurrency? I
See,
hope.
I agree, but those are just the speculations. You cannot really predict what is going to happen. The world is dynamic and moving at a very fast pace. Who will lose job or not? No one knew. Even at the start of, you can say, 2020, nobody would have presumed. People always used to say, I'll just give a common example, कि सब कुछ डूब जाएगा लेकिन शादी और मौत तो होती रहेगी ना in the world. And trust me, you can see the plight of the restaurants. You can see the plights of the marriage palaces. You can see the marriages happening with 10, 20 people, even till date. Yes, of course, exceptions are there, but then similar to the funerals also as well. So people would say, "बच्चे तो school जाते रहेंगे." See the plight of the uniform owners. They have not earned a single penny in the past 1 year and 3 months. So just to think who will lose job or not, that is a speculation. These were the professions that were not supposed to lose their job ever in the life, we could have presumed, but then that also happened. So banks might not be eternally worried about this currency losing part, because whenever one option comes, there might be other doors opening up as an avenue. Banks might be exchanging their cryptocurrency at a higher rate of interest than, or maybe at a lower rate of interest than the other exchanges. So they might earn out of that also. So we cannot actually just speculate on what is going to happen or what is not. If they are reacting because of the government. Because till the government accords the currency a legal status, the even the returns are not as lucrative as they were 6 to 8 months ago in today's times, and the kind of taxation also getting into it. I remember a group member of mine told me 4 years back, sir, Bitcoin is going to be the future. I bought 2 Bitcoins, and he got it at a damn choice. If you say someone buy 1 Bitcoin, it was $30,000. You can't, Indian cannot even think to buy 1 Bitcoin, and he had 2 Bitcoins. So I asked him very recently, what have you done with your Bitcoin? Sir, I already got 2 income tax notices. I have not even just sold, I've just bought it. I've just got 2 income tax notices. Another colleague, a senior colleague of mine in his late 50s, he said, I just purchased, again, done 2 years back, he just purchased 25,000 worth of cryptocurrency and sold it back. And he has got, say, income tax inquiry once at least as well. So people, government is tracking that till the currency becomes legal. I am not actually myself going to jump it. And then, having said that, if my corpus is done, if my good, reasonable avenues are giving me good returns, why do I need to look at those avenues which may be giving a similar return or maybe a tad higher? But because of my need or because of my, say, requirement to invest or start early, courtesy my dad, I've done that. So why should I be bothered about such things? And those things actually don't interest me anymore, because I am very secure mentally about certain things. Uh, don't you think it is a very, easy option to say that I have given up on stock exchange even after making profits? But I did it 3 years back. It is always good to leave on peak and not to leave when you are actually supposed to or you are about to, because of the losses that you incur. So it is all about the personal choices that we all make in life. I have my choices very clear cut and clarified in my mind that what I'm going to do.
Got it, sir. Got it.
Yeah.
Just that I'm not interested in investing in crypto for returns, but just because it's an innovative product, maybe let's see how it turns out. That's what
Let's hope your prophecy comes true and the crime skips out of it and the currencies of the world make it legal, and then we all would be investing in it.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Sure.
Right. So, Bhavdeep, we are already running a little late. We have eaten up 25 minutes more of your time.
No problem.
I
Any
think,
queries, still welcome.
right, right. But I think we'll call it day. It was a wonderful session. What I'd request everyone is, if you have more questions, please check out his YouTube channel by the name Dr. Bhavdeep Ahuja, where there'll be a lot of things to learn for sure. And hopefully we can keep another session on future topics. That'll be great as well, Dr. Bhavdeep.
Sure. Anytime. Pleasure will be all mine.
It was so nice to have you today on Clubhouse Dentistry at 32-Minute Club. If you all enjoyed the session, do join this particular club. You can see there's a small green color house icon on top where you can follow the club and you can get regular updates about and notifications about all our forthcoming lectures. Once again, thank you, Dr. Bhavdeep, for making it for this session. It was really informative and I'm sure a lot of us found it very, very helpful.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mayur. Thank you for having me here. It was my debut on Clubhouse and you made sure it went on wonderfully well. Thank you so much once again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today. I'll be looking forward to see you next time. That's on a Sunday where we have a case discussion. Till then, goodbye and good night.